ton of listeners have sent this over.
Oh, boy.
Apparently, Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer have gotten into another one of their spats.
Oh, I hate it when you see the folks fight. Mom and pop. It's been so long coming now. The tension in their marriage.
And I'm reading now. Meltzer says what? Tweeted out some of the history of this mindset from November 2020. It's a clip. I'm not going to play this right now. We'll see if we need to. Alvarez tries to explain to Meltzer that AEW has clearly defined baby faces and heels. Dave disagrees and says it's situational, and that Cody said so too, and that Kenny Omega is not portraying a face or a heel. He's portraying a superstar. So. With that said, let's go to this audio. We're going to break it up a few times because it's long, but you got to hear this.
Are there times when you would love to have another address or phone number to use instead of your home address and personal?
Oh, with that said, let's go to this audio. We're going to break it up a few times because it's long, but you got to hear this. Again, the listeners are pounding us with it. Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio. You can see it on their YouTube page, F4W Online. Check this out. You got to see the visuals on this. Let's go to this. I'm talking about Tony Storm.
Tony Storm beat Harley Cameron. So the thing with this match was, first off, Tony Storm's back to being a babyface this week after being a heel last week. Serena Deeb's on the ramp watching on and smiling as Tony's getting beaten down. I think she's supposed to be a babyface, but she came off as a heel. And then it was like Tony Storm is the champion against Harley Cameron. And my God, it felt like it went forever. She's like, beat her already. It wasn't that long.
Let's stop for a second there. I agree with everything you said.
Well, yeah, that's why I don't watch the girls' matches, because there are some of these, because then I would just be saying the same things over and over, but it's not limited to what we're watching. It's also the shit we're skipping.
If I ask you, based on what you've seen, is Tony Storm a babyface or a heel, what would you say?
At risk of hijacking the clip here for a second, they had something at the start. With Tony Storm kind of losing it a little bit and having a nervous breakdown and the silent movie star, if they had played that straight and had some restraint and let her believe it in her mind, but everybody else would roll their eyes and she's nuts, right? And then after she's established that for 3 or 4 months, then maybe the understudy wanders into the picture, maybe even just at ringside and maybe following her around, and you tell that story. And I'm not even opposed to Luther. He finally has some reason to exist. He's a fucking rotten, fucking god-awful wrestler, but as a fucking bald-headed Eric Von Stroheim wannabe, he fits the fucking suit. You could introduce him, and he could believe it, but within 3 weeks, everybody was going along with it. Bing Mankiewicz was putting up with it. And then within a couple weeks after that, here's the understudy, and they know, we're going to do it all about Eve. Well, goddamn. Betty Davis had been a star on Broadway in the scope of the picture for 20 years before the other floozy showed up. They just glommed all this together and threw it all out there, and now the understudy wrestles more than Tony Storm does. And we don't know what the fuck is even going on with that, because the understudy now is making out with the new Japanese girl that they found somewhere. And the answer to the question, is Tony Storm a babyface or a heel? Quite simply, obvious what happened, but then it got derailed by the booking. She was a heel. That was the place to start. That was the logic of the whole thing. But as she would get more, goofy and lost in her mind and everything in the black and white era, the fans would kind of start liking it, and that would kind of make her a babyface to the fans that was still becoming a heel, or was still being a heel. And that's where the understudy would come in, because then the understudy, and you'd have to have Luther by that point, because he'd serve as the agent also or whatever. Then the understudy would come in, and the understudy fucks Tony Storm, and it makes Tony Storm the babyface that they've wanted to like all along, and puts heat on the understudy now with fucking bald-headed, fucking useless Luther. And there's 6 months, isn't it?
A reverse Precious. Yes, I think so. And I guess, would you agree that Serena Deeb was presented last week as a babyface?
Well, yeah, she has been most of the time that I remember, and she's the professor, and she's very technically proficient. And last week she was presented as a deer caught in fucking headlights, but that wasn't really the plan going in.
Well, let's continue with this audio because it'll come up. Let's go back to Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer on Tony Storm.
How long was it?
Let me see. Let me get my...
If it's more than 2 minutes, it was too long.
What? I'm starting to like him more and more.
God damn it. If he teams up with fucking Kenny Olivier, the goddamn world is coming to an end.
They push Harley Cameron. They gave
He's had one match prior to this. Tony's the champion. They're trying to build Tony to a match on the pay-per-view in a week with somebody else. Have Harley beat somebody else.
Mariah You know what? For all of Brian Alvarez's faults when it comes to AEW coverage and listening to certain people and repeating certain fucking spins, when it comes to the booking, he's pointing out all the stuff we all see. You can't ignore it.
Well, apparently you can, because the guy on the other end of the fucking horn there, as they used to say, is ignoring it.
Well, let's hear what Dave has to say, but I agree with every single thing.
Let's hear what Dave has to stutter.
Let's say Tony Storm. They went 7 minutes.
7 minutes.
That's a short match for AEW television.
I was not a big fan of this.
And it was the only women's match on the show. If they had the only women's match on the show and they went 2 minutes, I promise you, there's going to be so much criticism.
You know what I have to say about online criticism? I would rather book for success than worry about online criticism. I don't care if people are angry that it was only 2 minutes. I would not have Tony Storm a week before a title defense on pay-per-view going 7 minutes back and forth with Harley Cameron, who's had 1 match.
Boom!
Makes a lot of sense.
Now we know Dave is hearing this. We know that Dave is getting this information fed to him by someone close to him, rather than an adversarial type of situation. Is he just incapable of the understanding of the same?
Who put in the 1 match, and this was a good match. I thought, Harley Cameron, for the number of matches she's had, is really good. They had a very good match. Tony Storm, instead of doing the gimmick, is showing that, in fact, she's wrestling seriously, which she did in this match. And I thought it was very effective.
Who cares whether it's a good match? It's not supposed to be. They're building to a good match that people care about.
It's like I said earlier, everything in AEW is a competitive squash match. It doesn't matter who the person they're pushing is in there with. It's not about Harley Cameron in this case. It's about the champion not being able to beat someone in 7 minutes. In this case, that's too long, but in other cases, we see matches go like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You know what the conclusion is. It's all about just having a great match. The last
Who's the heel?
It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
No, it doesn't.
doesn't.
Dave, I have seen so many segments with Tony Storm where there is no heat for the interview because nobody cares about the babyface. Because the babyface. Well, did you watch the segment they did last week?
Did you? You were in the building when Tony Storm came out and she got cheered like crazy. This match did not have no heat. This match had plenty of heat.
Yeah.
Cameron was the heel. Harley Cameron was the heel. Tony Storm was a big time babyface.
Yes,
there was nothing wrong
last
with that.
week she was a heel. Tony was a heel last week.
So
and Serena was out there doing a sad story about how she almost died, and nobody cared. They booed her.
We'll stop it there for a moment. Dave is incapable of really pointing out the flaws with the AEW booking, isn't he?
It makes you stutter and stammer like Dave at this point to wonder whether that he really can't see what he's saying or what he's not saying, or whether it's that he can't figure out an artful way to deflect it, so he just has to disagree with it. He's panicking. He's making a valid point. He's thinking in his head, this guy's making a valid point, and I can't figure out a way to get out of it, so I'm just going to disagree with it, even though it's nonsense.
Well, he flat out said it didn't matter if she was a heel or a babyface. And Alvarez correctly pointed out she was a heel last week. She's just suddenly a babyface now this week. It doesn't help long-term growth to book like that, right?
Well, no, of course not. And nobody can keep straight from one week to the other whose side they're supposed to be on in this conflict.
Let's go back to what has been titled the Great Tony Storm Debate, Alvarez and Meltzer, Wrestling Observer Radio. So they switched the thing around to follow the crowd. What's wrong with that?
Because they didn't switch it. And she will be a heel. She will be a heel the next time you see her.
It doesn't matter as long as the crowd reacted like crazy. It's not WWE does this constantly.
No, they don't. They have baby faces and heels. They have baby faces and heels.
Now at this point, Dave is like, you have to see the visual. It's almost like it hit him that Alvarez is right, but he was already ready to fire back with an argument. And he's like, he starts twitching with it, like holding
He's firing back with an argument. He just can't figure out what it is.
So does AEW, except with Tony.
And it's situational. It depends on who's wrestling who on what show. That's not. I mean, they have technically.
What's the last show where Drew was a babyface?
Drew McIntyre. Okay. What about Bronson Reed and Chad Gable when they wrestled each other? Who's the babyface and who's the heel?
Bronson Reed and Chad Gable. What match?
They had a match last week.
Chad was the heel. And he is a heel.
So Bronson Reed's the babyface. Is Bronson Reed the babyface next week? Will he be the babyface next week? Is he usually the babyface? No, that's what happens. You have situational things, and that's what you do. Does that make any sense? Situational babyfaces and heels?
No, because it's not just switching back. And while you're interacting with the same pool of people, the side that we're supposed to take as observers switches from one week to the next week with AEW. With yes, Serena was supposed to be the sympathetic person and Tony didn't give a shit, but this week and blah blah blah. In the WWE, yes, you do have heels wrestling heels or babyface wrestling babyfaces, and sometimes crowd picks a side, but they're not changing sides with each other as to who you're supposed to support. Individual people from one week to the next. I'm trying to figure out a way to verbalize that.
You are watching Pastor Woods Public Access Television on channels.
Verbalize that.
Let's go back to the man who cited Chad Gable versus Bronson Reed as the great example of this experiment. Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. Everyone has it because you sometimes make matches where there's a different thing. It's not a big deal. It certainly wasn't here because the match was effective. The match was good. And again, Tony Storm, who has done a lot of the gimmick so heavy for so long that has not shown off her wrestling skill. And she's into a match with Serena Deeb where whatever it is, they are going to go out and do a wrestling match. So therefore, if Tony Storm went and did her Tony Storm gimmick and Serena Deeb on the pay-per-view, it would suck. So they're basically showing she's going to wrestle Tony Storm and they're going to have a good match. So that is
Hold on.
See, is Dave explaining it or defending it? That's the issue.
Well, he sounds like he's trying to do both, and that's why people think that he's full of horseshit. But what the point is what he's saying there, if it would be correct then that, goddamn it, Tony Storm should then go out and completely out-wrestle this girl and slap a submission hold on her in about 2 minutes and blow through her. So look what I'm going to do to Serena. I've been training. I know all these holds. I know the crotch lock, leg strangle, and the Guatemalan flying toe hold, and boom. Yeah, then it would make sense. But not, she's going to have a great worked wrestling match. She's going to fucking take 10 minutes to demonstrate all of the great moves that she can do in this fake bullshit she's going to do with this other girl.
You're right. What kind of accusation is that? If she's going to go out there in the ring and have a match in kayfabe against this professor in the ring who can dismantle everyone, she's going to go out there and show that she can impress people in the ring by going 7 minutes with someone who's never wrestled before? Or once before?
Yes, that's what he's saying, because he's an idiot. He doesn't understand what he's fucking saying. He doesn't understand words that are coming out of his own mouth.
Well, let's hear more of those words. That is what Wednesday. That is what they are. That is what the story is. The story is that she went in there and the crowd cheered her. The crowd knew who the babyface was. The crowd knew who the heel was.
They cheer Tony all the time, but they cheer her every week, even when she's playing the heel role against another babyface. She should always be a babyface.
Well,
there's no need for her to be a heel. She's never going to get booed.
Okay,
so can we stop killing all the other babyfaces by having her be a heel that everyone loves?
Okay. I've never seen anyone do to Dave what Dave does to other people. He just completely steamrolled them.
Yeah, and by the way, also the only reason why people know that Harley Cameron draws a breath on the face of this big blue marble hurtling through space is because she was the QTV girl. And if anybody would fucking not want to see any more of anything, it would be on what was on QTV. So
yeah. She's known for QTV and also being in a feud over dating. Let's go back to Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer.
Okay, but that's the problem.
Okay, no. Okay, what does the other thing have to me? She is the world champion.
Yes.
A real world champion wrestles babyfaces and heels. And in that role, depending upon the situation, you are situational. That's everyone from Luthez to Jack Briscoe to Dory Funk Jr. to
Flair
to
that's not what.
Let me stop it, because that's absurd to compare one to the other.
Tanya to Flair to Tony Storm. No, she's not traveling around the world to hostile territories, fucking defending the precious AEW Women's World Title, one of the women's titles. Seriously, just Dave, come out and say what I said, encapsulated earlier. She needed to start as a heel, which she did. And if they'd allowed this to flesh out instead of jumping a shark with it after 3 weeks, the fans would have liked it, and then she would have had some way to turn with the understudy and the evil agent or whatever and become a full-fledged babyface, and there would have been some logical progression in story and in the character and all these other buzzwords these fucking tap dancing kids like to fucking say. And instead, they booked it into a goddamn mess like they do everything else and just come out and say it. No, they're just cheering her because they like her because she's interesting, and that's better than most of this dreck that's on this program. but that none of this makes any sense from week to week or has any consistency. Please come out and say that, Uncle Dave.
And again, there's a difference in explaining, which is kind of what Alvarez is doing about the way this has all been laid out in reality, and defending, which is what Dave is doing. Dave is defending this booking.
It's like
which has led to these numbers.
Well, it's like his mother's being held over an open flame. If he in any way loses this argument, he can't be wrong.
Let's go back to Mr. Wright.
What's happening here? What's happening is she is a heel.
She's not a heel.
She is portrayed as a heel.
You have to see the video of this Dave. It's the camera's on him and he gets really mad and he lunges towards the camera.
I could be fearing for my life if I saw that.
No, there's a camera. He lunges towards the camera, not at anyone, so you don't have to worry, but he lunges towards the camera.
Well, if it was in 3D.
Well, let's go back to the great argument here.
And they have her opponents. They have her opponents portrayed. This is an exception. This is an exception.
Harley Cameron is a heel. Harley Cameron is a heel.
This is an exception.
She was a babyface.
Yes, if you watch the show, this is an exception.
And guess what? And it is an angle that makes sense because Harley Cameron wrestled Mariah May, her protege, and
who was portrayed as a babyface.
who was babyface in that match, in that situation. So therefore, she's trying to get revenge for the fact that they beat up Mariah May. And so in that role, she is in fact the babyface. So she was a babyface. She got cheered. She had a good match. And
Hey, wait, hold on one second.
She had a good match.
And well, yeah, we keep hearing that. And also, the evil all about Eve. Whether she was evil or just a fucking opportunist or whatever, the understudy that's brought in to do we kept hearing at the start of this angle, we're doing all about Eve. They had grand delusions. They were Orson Welles. I think they're more like H.G. Wells. This is some science fiction bullshit. But the understudy is supposed to be the fucking catalyst for the heel star of our show, Tony Storm, to become a babyface, and now the understudy's a babyface first. So does that make any goddamn sense? Or are they just redoing all about Eve to make it all about Steve?
And again, Dave is vociferously defending this, which is crazy. It's almost like he booked it himself. Let's go back to this.
they had a good wrestling match where she showed that she was wrestling. There was nothing. I can't find a thing wrong with this at all.
Well, we'll discuss this again next Wednesday for the next segment they do with Tony Storm and Serena Deeb. Because I will.
Yes, if they go in the match. So if they cheer Tony Storm, cool. If they boo Tony Storm, cool. They're probably gonna cheer, but that's
yes, they are going to cheer her.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. What's wrong with that?
Because her opponent is being pushed as a babyface, and no one cares about her opponent. And the exact same thing happened with Deanna. Deanna was supposed to be the babyface. Nobody cared.
Okay, well, if they go out there and go, if the fans don't care, then guess what? It would have been even worse if she was the heel. And at least in this case.
I didn't understand what that meant.
I've lost it around the far turn. There was a big bush there, and they switched places. I don't know what now he is saying.
What do you think of Alvarez kind of marching on Dave? I mean, everything he's saying, I agree with.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he's saying anything that's out of the bounds of sanity, reason, or logic. Every point he's made is valid, and Dave won't. He will not give up that fucking ground. San Juan Hill is safe.
And I think this is actually beyond Dave and Brian arguing about this. The bigger issue is this is one of those things with AEW they need to change. You need baby faces and heels. We've seen the experiment now. You need baby faces and heels.
And maybe this is why AEW, unfortunately, is listening to Uncle Dave as he sinks further and further into the rutabaga of his brain. And most normal people are forced to think like Alvarez, like normal, logical human beings.
What is happening? That's what I'm saying. It needs to go the other way. Serena Deeb should be the heel. Tony should be the babyface. Deanna should have been the heel. Tony should have been the babyface. Tony should be the babyface going forward. Okay, that's what should happen.
Okay, then Tony should be the babyface. If the fans, sure.
Okay.
I agree.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens next week when she's the heel and Serena's the babyface. That's what they did last week.
Guess what? Serena was not necessarily a babyface when she was out on the ramp at all.
She wasn't today, but she was last week when she's talking about how she almost died. She's begging the fans to cheer and they won't.
Brian.
Yes.
Maybe he did it again. Brian.
Oh, Brian.
She almost died.
Yeah, well, that used to be. Reminds me. Stacy on her cell phone. She customized Gary Jester's ringtone.
I remember this.
Every time Gary Jester would call her cell phone trying to get a hold of me for some emergency, it would be Goldman from Family Guy going, "Oh my God, I think I just had a miscarriage."
They learned from last week. Is there a possibility they learned from last week and that's why they did this? Aside from the fact that it all fits into the
Dave,
story.
you want to know why I'll say no, there's not a possibility?
Okay.
Because 3 weeks ago, Tony Storm was playing the babyface role. And I was like, okay, finally they figured it out. Tony's the babyface. The very next week, they switched it again and had Serena Deeb play babyface and talk about how she almost died, begging fans to cheer, and nobody did.
Well, guess what? So they learned.
Okay, so they learned.
So they learned.
We will figure it out next Wednesday when we do another segment. And she's still a babyface. Where were we?
Well, as long as the crowd, as long as the crowd's going to react, I don't care who the babyface or the heel is. You know, in this day and age, the crowd's going to do what the crowd's going to do.
So let's stop. That's a very interesting thing he just said. In this day and age, the crowd's going to do what the crowd's going to do. Does that mean the booker should give up on trying to push them in certain directions?
No, of course not. The crowd is going to do what the crowd's going to do when the crowd gets bored.
Crisp zucchini at Aldi might inspire you to step up your game.
Man, what the crowd's going to do when the crowd gets bored or is scoffing at what they're seeing and is not interested in it. Or because they can make up more interesting shit amongst themselves or see more interesting things about a particular talent that is being presented on the show by the supposed professionals. That's when the crowd's going to do what the crowd's going to do. Every once in a while, you have a personality that they're going to like, and they're going to get into something that person does, or the Mulkeys, because they took that classic ass whipping and they looked like such nebbishes, but the people loved it. Or we had an OVW guy named Rod Steele. He was big and tall and kind of bland, but he got a fucking Randy Savage kind of sparkly, cape outfit, and he would do a big body slam because that was the best move he had, right? And we put him in dark matches, and every once in a while he'd make television because I couldn't use him seriously as part of the developmental program. But the fans in unison, whenever he would body slam somebody, they would scoop, slam. It'd be like they're chanting for Cody right today. So we would have him have a dark match and let the people see him, and he would get to do 3 or 4 scoop slams in a row. But that didn't mean that we got him and put a belt on him and had him open the show for 40 weeks in a row. The point is that you've got to tell the stories that you want to tell and put your talent, especially your main talent, your key talent, in consistent positions. You can't have a guy portrayed as foreclosing on the fucking orphanage over at the Shady Rest one week, in your story, in your program, and then the next week, have him tragically befall a fucking situation from some other heel, and boy, we should give him our sympathy. Fuck it, it's what he deserved, because last week he foreclosed on the orphanage. You've got to be consistent. You can't just because the crowd is going to cheer someone because they like them does not override the fact that you can't have somebody being arrested for goddamn, aggravated mayhem one week and then be portrayed as a moral saint and a straight edge character the next week. That's what doesn't work in any kind of storytelling or any kind of character development or any kind of form of entertainment. You're just telling people, I can't trust any of these motherfuckers, so I'm disinterested.
Now let's go back just a little bit more. Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez arguing on Wrestling Observer Radio.
How many times we went through this whole thing with John Cena for 10 years?
Yeah, and what did we say, Dave? We say should have gone babyface.
John Cena should stay babyface.
Yeah, and when Roman Reigns was getting booed like crazy, we say should have gone heel.
Okay,
should have gone with it.
Okay, each time, I never said John Cena should turn heel. I was always against John Cena turning heel because guess what? I think about business, and the business was John Cena was selling the most tickets, and John Cena was selling the most merchandise, and if he turned heel, the merchandise sales would go down. And that's why Vince McMahon never turned him, and when he went to the house shows, he always got cheered, and it was just a TV crowd, and John Cena was the most successful character they had for all those years as he was being booed as a babyface. So it doesn't matter that he was booed as a babyface at all because he was the number one drawing card that they had that entire period, except for a brief period, I think.
Can we pause for a second? Yes, numbnuts. Everything you just said was true, and also during that time, John Cena was preaching hustle and loyalty and respect and fucking make a wish and positive principles and never say die and never give up. And he was a little negative. You can't see me, but he wasn't flip-flopping between stabbing people in the back and turning on his friends one week and then being that same stand-up person the next week, or he wasn't wrestling opponents that had just come back from serious goddamn open fucking colon surgery or had deaths in a family and was on a comeback tour, and his opponents weren't portrayed in sympathetic lights. Everybody's point in this morality play was clearly defined, and whose side that a normal person would want to be on in the story, if you believe the story, which is where they had the kids and the casuals, and the hardcores booed him because they weren't happy with whatever the fuck, but the kids and the casuals were still buying all the merchandise. They didn't have him come out and say, well, fuck half the audience then. To react to this, they continued telling the story that made sense. Brian, did I articulate that clearly?
Very clearly.
I'm sorry.
Let's go back to the opposite side of clarity.
Brief period where Jeff Hardy may have surpassed him, but it was brief because didn't sustain, and Jeff, so it doesn't, like, the whole point is it doesn't matter who they cheer or boo. It's everything situational. Sometimes fans are going to boo baby faces, and if they do, it kind of sucks when they boo a baby face, so that's probably better to turn them. But sometimes, like again, John Cena shows. In this case, I've seen so many heels get cheered, and it was fine. It's tough for a baby face, but if business is good, then it's whatever. Everyone cheered the NWO. It was great for a while. At some point, of course, it turned bad, but that was years. When it did,
it took years to 3 years they were in business,
and then they tried to turn a baby face.
Well, that's the end of that.
Jesus Christ.
The problem is this is kind of a great way to look at Tony Khan's mindset and the justifications he has internally for his booking, because he leans on Dave. And you hear Dave defending this bad booking, trying to compare it to things that worked in the past. Look at the results.
There's no resemblance to anything that's ever been done in the past, much less worked in the past.
And again, don't defend things when they're not working. Look at the ratings, look at the pay-per-view buys. Everything is down, down, down. So it's not the time to defend what's not working. It's the time to try to say the things out loud that cause them to fix things. And that's not what we got here. Any other thoughts on Dave's defense of Tony Storm's booking and anything else?
Well, no, if they pay Dave per word or partial word, then he's making a ton of money, but he can't form a cogent simile and get to the point because, for one thing, he doesn't have a point to get to. Every time you analyze it, unless you go around in circles like he's doing, you come to the conclusion that Alvarez makes a very good point. Whether in real life or whether in the kayfabe storyland of the television program or all points in between, yes, the fans are going to cheer for whoever they want to these days because they're all smart to begin with, but there needs to be consistency from one week to the next where if someone drastically changes the point or their moral fiber or their demeanor, there needs to be some pivotal point that happens to them that causes that. Or if a man's long time...
48 Barriers is family-owned company, started in 2003.
If a man's longtime man confidant gets laid out and we never see him again, he probably should refer to him, even if to say, well, it took me a while to fucking dig the hole, but I finally got rid of that son of a bitch. These type of things. And it's not happening, and Dave's trying to defend it. He can't defend it because it's not even good storytelling for smart fans, much less for people that actually would make this a profitable company comparable to or competitive with the industry leader.
He's out of touch with thinking outside the wrestling bubble. He's stuck in the wrestling bubble and he doesn't realize it.
He's in one of the smaller wrestling bubbles too. This goes even past the kind of interested fan that watches a lot of the TV shows and buys T-shirts. This is all the way into the we're paraplegics and can't move, so we're stuck on the internet type of wrestling fan.
Well, Jim, perhaps after listening to something like that, you have to place a bet on whether Tony Storm will be heel or babyface next week, or maybe you want to play the over-under game with your friends.
Well, now that you mention it, Captain Over, have you met Sergeant Under? Hey, if you've ever played that over-under game, folks, you know exactly what we're talking about. You might say, I think I can eat that slice of pizza in under 30 seconds, or I know it's going to take you over a minute to down that 1 quart of 10W40 motor oil and then bend over and light a fart to melt ice off a sidewalk.
Who's playing this game?
Well, these are games that we played as children.
You played this in over-under?
Well, I'll tell you what, you'd be surprised.
We over-under.
Bear in mind that the snow and ice in Louisville back when I was a kid was a little bit thicker than it is these days, what with the global warming. But anyway, folks, if you like to go the over, the under, or all points in between, you're going to love Pick 6, the new fantasy game from DraftKings. You know who they are. They're an official partner of the NBA. I don't know if they're going to be named in the lawsuits as well if they're an official partner, but they're certainly pairing up with them in this endeavor. And here's what, these NBA playoffs, they're still going on, right?
They certainly are, and the New York Knicks are looking good. They have a big game coming up with Indiana.
Well, and Indiana wants me. Lord, I can't go back there, but you can go back to the Pick 6 app. Right now, that's what you do, folks. You download the Pick 6 app, the DraftKings Pick 6 app, that is. And what you do is, since the NBA